New York has seen many rise, fall, and fight for the crown, but none of them exploded onto the stage the way he did. Before the world knew his name, before the rainbow hair and the chaos, before the courtroom whispers that would shake the culture, there was just a kid from Bushwick who believed one thing with absolute conviction. If the world wouldn't notice him, he would force it to. Daniel Hernandez grew up in a rough corner of Brooklyn. His father was killed when he was a child. His mother did everything she could to keep him afloat, but the neighborhood offered him more danger than opportunity. School slipped away from him. By the 8th grade, he was out. By his early teens, he was hustling on the streets. Not because he wanted to be a criminal, but because the world around him didn't offer much else. But beneath the struggle was an explosive energy waiting to burst. Music became his escape. Screamed lyrics, distorted beats, a raw emotion that didn't care about melody or polish. He wasn't trying to sound like anyone else. He was trying to sound like himself, because that was the only thing he had. And then came the transformation. He didn't slowly build a persona. He detonated one. Rainbow hair, face tattoos, the number 69 over and over again across his skin. A visual identity so loud and so shocking that looking away almost felt impossible. He turned himself into a living brand, chaotic, controversial, impossible to ignore. At first, the attention was small but intense. Underground videos, early social media buzz, a cult following that couldn't tell if they loved him or just loved reacting to him. But everything changed with one moment. The release of the song that would shake the internet. Gummo. A beat that hit like a sledgehammer. A video filled with red bandanas, aggressive energy, and streets filled with bodies moving in unison behind the rainbow-haired figure in the center. It dropped like a thunderclap. One night he was a rising curiosity. By the next morning, he was a national conversation. Who was he? Why did this video look like it was shot in the middle of a war zone? And how was someone who looked like that commanding the energy of a gang-heavy New York block? The success of Gummo sparked more than fame. It sparked alliances. He surrounded himself with members of the 9 Trey Gangsta Bloods. They appeared in videos, in social posts, in music. He shouted them out, wore their colors, represented their presence openly. To him, the affiliation offered protection, credibility, and power. To them, he was a shortcut to fame and revenue. It was a deal of convenience, and it was a ticking bomb. More hits followed. Kuda, Billy, Tati, Fifi with Nicki Minaj. Every release propelled him further into the spotlight. The energy was volatile, the aesthetics chaotic, and the attitude louder than the city that raised him. He declared himself the King of New York. Critics laughed, fans cheered, haters fumed. But regardless of how anyone felt, everyone was forced to acknowledge one undeniable truth. The kid could capture attention better than anyone alive. But cracks began to form. There was the LAX airport fight that went viral. The kidnapping incident where he was beaten and robbed. Public disputes with managers and gang associates. Online feuds escalating into real-world threats. The same chaos that made him famous was beginning to consume him from the inside. Even more disturbingly, some of his so-called gang allies, men he'd partnered with for street credibility, allegedly slept with his baby mother and were directly involved in the ambush that left him bruised and vulnerable in a hospital bed. The people he thought were riding with him ended up turning on him, robbing him of jewelry, and delivering the message loud and clear. The throne he was building had unstable foundations. By late 2018, the storm finally struck. The FBI moved in. Federal racketeering charges, weapons charges, conspiracy charges. This was not an arrest for clout. This was decades on the line. Overnight, the King of New York headline shifted to the face of a criminal organization under federal investigation. But then came the decision that would change everything. He cooperated with the government. He spoke. He testified. He gave details about the gang he once represented in every music video. And instantly, the culture exploded. The streets labeled him a snitch. Rap purists rejected him. Memes erupted across the internet. He became the most talked about figure in hip-hop for reasons no artist would ever want. Yet even then, he remained unignorable. After months in custody, his sentence was shortened due to his cooperation. And in April 2020, he was released early under concerns about his health. His comeback was not quiet. It was loud, defiant, and bizarrely self-aware. His first release after prison, Gooba, shattered YouTube records. His live streams on Instagram had more viewers than anyone has seen before. He mocked the snitch label. He pointed directly at the criticism and laughed at it, even using a mouse filter over his head in the music video. He trolled other rappers. He flaunted wealth. He showed off his ankle monitor like it was jewelry. His Instagram Live shattered the all-time viewer record. But something was different now. Before prison, people watched him with a mix of fascination and fear. After prison, they watched him mostly for entertainment. The power had shifted. The menace was gone. The throne he once shouted about was no longer his. But the world still watched, just for a different reason. He released the album Tattletales, but its performance fell short. Labels hesitated to support him. Promoters avoided booking him. Former allies disappeared. The industry moved on, even as the internet continued to turn him into a meme that refused to die. At the same time, he quietly began leaning into his Latin roots, releasing his first full Spanish-language single, Be, featuring Anuel AA in 2018, and later dropping the all-Spanish track Ya Ya in 2020. This shift culminated in a surprise 2023 Spanish-language reggaeton album called Leyenda Viva, signaling a pivot to the Latin market and a recognition that his next phase might find more traction south of the border than it ever again would in the English-speaking rap world. Over time, his presence became a cycle of occasional music, controversial moments, social media wars, and flashes of virality. Some moments were confrontational. Some were humiliating. Some were oddly human. Desperate to stay in the spotlight, he often reached for relevance by dragging other artists into the chaos, mocking the deaths of King Von and Pop Smoke, taking shots at Lil Durk, and provoking anyone whose name could still spark headlines. These attempts only amplified the sense that he was grasping for attention that no longer came naturally. But all of them served as reminders that even fallen kings leave echoes behind. Today, his legacy is complicated. He changed how virality works. He proved that shock value could launch a career into the stratosphere. He showed how trolling could become a business model, but he also demonstrated the cost of building a kingdom on instability, alliances of convenience, and controversy that burns hotter than the music itself. In the end, he rose like an explosion. He fell like a collapse. And he returned as something entirely different. A character shaped by the internet, surviving through attention rather than respect. These days, he's seen on live streams with the likes of Aiden Ross and in interviews with Vlad, where he still finds a way to go viral with his over-the-top remarks. New York crowns many kings, some through skill, some through influence, some through legacy. But his crown was made of lightning, powerful, bright, and impossible to sustain. He was the king of controversy, the king of chaos, the king of attention. And attention always finds something new. The colors fade, the noise quiets, and the voice leaves one final thought. Some thrones are built, some are inherited. His was willed into existence through sheer force, and was always destined to crack. Thank you for watching. In a world where fame can be built in an instant and destroyed just as quickly, his story stands as a reminder that attention is powerful, but it's never permanent. Some rise through talent, others through controversy, and some through pure shock value. But no matter how fast the ascent, the fall always comes just as fast. If this story showed anything, it's that the crown of chaos is easy to claim, but impossible to keep. And hey, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to like the video, subscribe if you're new, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss what's coming next. Your support helps these stories keep going, and I appreciate every one of you for sticking to the end.